We imagine the past as pristine marble statues, clean, dignified, and perfectly preserved. But strike the surface, and that elegant exterior cracks. The history taught in standard classrooms goes through a rigorous filtering process. Textbooks intentionally strip away the strange, the grotesque, and the morbid details of human behavior. By removing those bizarre anomalies, we lose sight of how chaotic real people actually are. Today, we are opening the archives to look at 5 true, deeply unsettling events that shatter that pristine image of the past. The timeline of human progress is rarely a straight, logical line. It is a catalog of very strange, often disturbing human impulses. Think about the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. The popular image paints them as divine architects, ruling with quiet dignity over a massive empire. Then there is Pharaoh Pepy II. He was a ruthless autocrat, but his daily life was driven by a profound personal hatred of flies. To keep insects away from his royal person, Pepy mandated a deeply cruel practice. He forced his enslaved servants to strip completely naked and stand next to him, slathered head to toe in thick, sticky honey to act as living flypaper. Thousands of years later, the late 19th century Victorian era claimed to represent the absolute peak of refined, civilized culture in Europe and the US. This archival photograph of a Victorian hat shows the reality of that high society. The fashion of the day required wealthy women to wear entire dead taxidermied birds, including bluebirds and hummingbirds, stitched right into the fabric. Millions of birds were slaughtered simply to decorate headwear. Immense wealth and absolute power rarely produce quiet majesty. They usually manifest as sheer, unhinged vanity and casual cruelty. Even as Europe moved through the Renaissance and modernized, average citizens did not suddenly become calm, rational actors during a crisis. This antique map depicts the heavily fortified city of Strasbourg, France. In 1518, the city was paralyzed by an inexplicable mass hysteria. A single woman began dancing fervently in those streets. Within a month, roughly 400 citizens had joined her, convulsing continuously until dozens of people actually died from strokes, heart failure, and absolute exhaustion. 3.5 centuries later, in 1875, a massive warehouse fire in Dublin triggered another strange reaction. The blaze unleashed a literal river of burning, boiling whiskey rushing down the city's cobblestone streets. The fire itself was massive, yet it killed no one. Instead, 13 people died of severe alcohol poisoning because they knelt in the dirty gutters, scooped up the boiling, contaminated liquid, and drank it. When panic strikes, the basic instinct for survival is incredibly fragile. Primal greed and mass delusion easily override logic. You might expect the modern military to be the ultimate rational machine. We picture the grim, muddy reality of World War I trenches, but the leadership often engaged in entirely surreal tactics. This photograph shows a World War I-era biplane. French authorities were terrified that German aircraft like this would launch devastating nighttime bombing raids and reduce their historic capital to ash. Their solution was a highly classified and deeply bizarre countermeasure. They decided to build an entire life-size replica of Paris a few miles outside the actual city. They erected fake wooden buildings, sham railway stations, and installed dummy electric lighting. The explicit goal was to trick German pilots flying overhead into dropping their bombs on an empty, illuminated field in the middle of the night. The massive scale of industrialized conflict pushed governments into acts of desperate, highly elaborate deception that bordered on the absurd. From autocrats creating human fly traps to cities dancing themselves to death, and nations building sprawling decoy capitals. The clean timelines printed in educational materials leave out a staggering amount of strange behavior. The reality of human history is much weirder and significantly darker than the stories we normally hear. Cruelty, vanity, sheer panic, and desperate trickery shape our past with the exact same force as heroism or technological progress. The next time you open a conventional history book, look past the neatly organized chapters and the noble portraits. Ask yourself what unsettling, morbid, and deeply human secrets the authors intentionally decided to leave on the cutting room floor.